For anyone else who's an aspiring leader in technology, what guidance would you give them to advance their career? And basically, how did you kind of went through it just now, but how did you get there ultimately?
Um, I mean, if I'm giving advice or thinking about kind of the things that got me to the places I wanted to, or how I learned what I needed to go to to reach the next level, it was to watch out for the people that you keep around you and keep an eye on the leaders that you admire. Like if you notice something about a leader, or not even a leader, just a person that they're killing it at what they do, you want to learn from everybody. So breaking out of your own vertical and getting a well-rounded skill set makes you a really dynamic leader. And it'll also force you to network. I know that's not everybody's favorite thing. And it can be inorganic in some ways. But if you watch for the leaders that have a skill or seem to have expertise or are really good at doing something, and you approach them and try and talk to them about what that looks like for them, how they do it, first of all, that person's going to be incredibly receptive, right? You're giving them a compliment. And second of all, you'll learn from them. And if you break out of your own vertical and notice that about other people that aren't just in your function, it first of all, it helps you understand other parts of the business you're working in. And then second of all, you'll learn an incredible amount. So some of my favorite leaders that I've worked with that have helped grow me, I never reported to them. They were just people that I had reached out to talk to understand what they were doing.
Well, and Adrian, as you know, we didn't necessarily plan to talk about networking, but it is. I'd love to kind of explore this thread a little bit. So,
Yeah.
ultimately, what you've done in your career is network internally at the companies that you've worked at, correct? And it's been other leaders that you've admired from a distance. Is that am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I mean, the majority of it's definitely where I have the most exposure, right? You spend 8 to however many hours a day at the place you work. I've also volunteered places or work like had a chance to be around other people doing things or leading efforts. Same thing applies. So if I'm going to do work at the IRC, the International Refugee Committee, there are a couple of people there that were doing really cool things on a shoestring budget. And I would watch and be like, I don't get how you're making this happen, and go ask them questions. It had nothing to do with why I was even there. I was literally tutoring refugees on English, but watching something happen that was totally out of my own comfort zone. Same thing, same idea, same kind of networking.
Yeah. No, I think it's such an important point, and just one that I think I'd love to kind of reiterate for anyone who's watching, specifically as it relates to that question we started with of how to advance your career and get to leadership role. Um, Start by that networking internally, or to your point, even if it's volunteer work. If you admire what someone's doing, there's so many leaders that want to give back, that want to help, that asking those questions to start the relationship, and then obviously a guy like me will remind everyone to then try to do your best to stay in touch. That's sometimes the hardest part, right?
Definitely, definitely.
Well, so let's stay on the leadership theme and move into, like, for you personally as a leader, how do you approach team leadership and just people management in general?
Yeah, leadership is really interesting, right? Sometimes you might feel like part therapist. Sometimes you might you might have to be teaching some foundational skills that maybe you assumed were there or weren't. But I think no matter what the situation, if you take time to listen and ask more questions and really understand what that person's experiencing, it makes it so that your communication's improved and you can get the result that you want. So if you establish, hey, here's how we're going to communicate, here's my leadership style, what is it that you need from me? Really catering that style to understand you're going to always be the leader you are, and your communication style is your communication style. But understanding what that person needs and helping to tweak it and then set some expectations so that person isn't off put by you, and continuously having some dialogue around that, I think is really key to being a good leader. I've hired and worked with a ton of different personality types, and I've been fairly successful. And I think it's because I set the expectation of here's how I am, what can I do better? And I actively ask for feedback, which is intensely uncomfortable. Even when I think I have really good rapport with somebody, I prep them and say, look, a few times a year, we are going to talk about what I can do better. And I'm going to send you a note ahead of time so you're thinking about it. And I'm not just putting you on the spot in a one-on-one. But I think it is key to make sure that you're doing a good job. And I know a lot of companies, they do 360s, and there's all kinds of things that you can do. It's an expectation. But the real genuine thing happens when you initiate it, not because your company tells you to or your leader's telling you to, but because you've told that person, look, my intention's to be better. and we need to do better together. Even if the relationship is great, doing that check-in, it's really, it acknowledges that person's experience, it makes them feel heard, and you'll get things back that you never expected, and it will help you.
It's incredible. I mean, incredible advice.